Welcome back to Come Talk About Sports from WQAQ 98.1 in Hamden, Connecticut at Quinnipiac University. I'm Keith Savage. I'm here with Jakob Potemri. Jacob, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Keith?
Doing great, and we're ready to talk all about basketball. We had some big news in the last week with the NBA trade deadline, but the biggest move came today. It was the signing of Jeff Teague to the Milwaukee Bucks. What do you think about our homeboy, Jeff Teague, going on to Milwaukee?
So as a Celtics fan, I haven't exactly been the most proud of how the Jeff Teague signing came to be this season. However, I think he was just starting to find his place with us before he ended up getting traded. He had some games where when Kemba wasn't playing, he would come to the starting lineup. He had some 20-point games. He would get in double-digit scoring. It felt like he wasn't trying to play for himself, but he was more trying to play for the team. So losing him was a little bit rough to see, but now the Celtics are looking to get in a better direction.
Yeah, definitely an interesting move. The last time Jacob was on the show about a month ago, we were talking about how much we hate Jeff Teague, and now our guy is gone and on to Milwaukee. But the biggest news from yesterday was Andre Drummond to the Lakers. His stats are godly, but the play does not back that up. Do you think this Andre Drummond move is the biggest move in the trade deadline?
I think if you compare to some of the other moves, like the Nikola Vucevic to the Bulls was huge. Aaron Gordon to the Nuggets could also potentially be huge. But I think if you're looking in terms of a potential finals run, I think this move, Andre Drummond to the Lakers, solidifies the Lakers going to the NBA Finals. You have a trio of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Andre Drummond. This comfortably puts Anthony Davis back in the 4 spot where he plays his best basketball, and the Lakers are going to be a deadly force in this playoff series coming up.
Yeah, definitely going to be scary. If Drummond can fit in that team right, knows his role, he's going to have to go in that Dennis Rodman type role. You're going to get the rebounds. He was shooting a little bit too much in Cleveland and Detroit, but he could take those shots. They weren't.
He won't be shooting in L.A., though.
Yeah, he hopefully learns his role like Dennis Rodman, gets them boards, and he's going to kick out. But in other news, we had the veteran, one of the best power forwards in the 2010s, LaMarcus Aldridge, moving to Brooklyn, also pairing up with Blake Griffin. Do you think Brooklyn is going to be a legit team now?
I think Brooklyn has always been a legit team, and this is just another piece to their race for a championship. I think you have this team starting off at the beginning of the season with the James Harden trade. You formed that big three in Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. And then you also go on to pick up some key pieces. Blake Griffin. You had Blake Griffin. You have LaMarcus Aldridge now. And you have guys developing on that team such as Bruce Brown. I think that team could go on a great playoff run, could probably go to the finals just as long as that team doesn't have any injuries to any of its big players.
Yeah, I would say that too. The biggest part of that team is injuries. Right now, you only have James Harden, the big three, who just came back from injury. You don't have KD. He should be back soon, but you have no KD, no Kyrie right now. You need that team to get healthy, and this team's looking good. But the biggest thing I don't think people appreciate about the Brooklyn Nets is Joe Harris and Nicholas Claxton. Joe Harris is right now the 4th best player, no question, out of the big three. Nicholas Claxton has been performing very well. Do you think Claxton and Harris are more valuable than Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge?
I think that as of right now, I haven't seen enough game. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge are obviously new to the team, and Blake Griffin was struggling back in Detroit. LaMarcus Aldridge, when he was on the Spurs, they were starting to phase out his game a little bit so that Greg Popovich and the crew could give more time to the young players. I think it's just going to be a test of time. Obviously, right now, you have Joe Harris, who's been a proven sharpshooter for the Nets, and he's got that big contract, 4 years, $72 million. And Nicholas Claxton, a player they drafted back in 2019, I believe, and he has been great for them off the bench, coming off for DeAndre Jordan. I think those players right now have more importance to the Nets franchise than Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, but we're going to have to see.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. But Nick Claxton was a guy I loved out of college that I desperately wanted the Boston Celtics to draft, but he didn't get him. So now let's move on to the Celtics. And what's your reaction of we had acquired Evan Fournier, Mo Wagner, and Luke Cornet, but we got rid of Tice, Javonte Green. We got rid of many more in the second-round picks. What's your reaction to this?
I think this is a step in the right direction for the Boston Celtics. We know a lot of I've been on Celtics Twitter a lot the past couple of days, and every comment I see is, why would you trade Daniel Tice? It's like, well, the Celtics had a problem. They were over the salary cap, and they needed to trade Daniel Tice so they could get under that salary cap, which, if they were still over, that would have affected them for more seasons to come. And we gave Daniel Tice, we gave Javonte Green, Jeff Teague, some second-round picks.
4 second-round picks to be exact.
4 second-round picks, and in return, we got some promising big men, 7-footers, not as skilled as Daniel Tice, but still some guys who could show some skill for us off the bench, and obviously Evan Fournier. Danny Ainge has said that before the Celtics trade deadline, the Celtics needed to get a guy with shooting and size. This guy is 6'7". He's averaging 19 points a game this season. He's going to probably mix between a starting and bench role this season for the Celtics, but Brad Stevens said he's going to get a lot of minutes. So be ready to see a lot of Evan Fournier for this Boston Celtics team, potentially making a decent, nice run through the playoffs.
Yeah, Fournier, huge acquisition. I highly recommend. Do not look up his last name because you will not be happy when you see a Fournier. If you do it, do it at your own risk. But don't look up his last name. But the move is definitely interesting. Daniel Tice, set to be a free agent next year. He's going to get paid. He's probably going to get above 10, 15 mil, a minimum. He's going to get double digits. He deserves it. He's been a good player. He's going to come off the bench now in Chicago. I like the moves. It's needed, and they didn't trade anything with the trade exception. Maybe that move, you can see Bradley Beal's in a bad situation. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns requests a trade. They could make some moves in this offseason out of nowhere, and maybe have a big three because I don't know if Kemba's a part of the future of this team, but now we look at teams like the Orlando Magic who are dumpster fire right now. Do you think they're the biggest loser of the trade deadline?
I think the Orlando Magic, you could say they are in a way, yes, the biggest loser of the deadline. They thought they had a big three in Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Vucevic. They tried that out for the past maybe 5-6 years now, and things just weren't working out. It wasn't what they were going for, and so they just said they had to press the reset button. They traded all 3 of those guys at the deadline, ended up with wealth of young players, wealth of veterans, wealth of picks, and they're just going to have to look to start over.
Yeah, definitely interesting moves that they made over there because right now they want to build around 2 players who are hurt, and Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac. Both good young players, but Isaac's more of a 3-and-D type guy. He showed improvement in his offensive game in the bubble, then sadly tore his ACL. Markelle Fultz started showing improvements, then tore his ACL. Definitely going to be interesting to see. They're going to try out Mo Bauman's been a huge disappointment, but he's going to get the minutes now. You have Wendell Carter there. The team is looking for a rebuild. You know what the best team in rebuilding is?
What team is that?
Oklahoma City Thunder. They now have 34 picks for the next 7 years. 17 first-round picks, 17 second-round picks, and they ended up trading away. George Hill got a pick back. They said, you know what? Let's take back Myers Leonard, who was going to get cut because of his remarks. And they got a second-round pick. They're making all these moves, all for this future rebuild. Do you think in 5 years we're going to be talking about Oklahoma City Thunder as contenders?
I think in 5 years, 2026, the Oklahoma City Thunder will be looked upon as one of those teams that can make big championship runs, aspirations. They have some great young players now in SGA, and Moses Brown has been a great surprise as their center.
Extension now too, and for $6.8 million, so he's part of this future.
In a game against our Celtics, he had 17 points and 19 rebounds in the first half. It was like we were watching the Celtics play Wilt Chamberlain. It was crazy.
Yeah, Moses Brown, definitely. He was a two-way, and Portland got cut by the Blazers, and they said, I'll give you a chance. OKC did good in the G League bubble. They said, all right, we'll bring you up. Started proving. And they were like, all right, I'm going to have you play. They have Theo Maldona's looked pretty good. And my guy, who I've said many times, Alexei Pokusevsky, is finally getting the minutes, getting over 30 minutes, and he's showing some highlights of himself. Al Horford is now, he won't play a single minute the rest of the year. He's the last time ever playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's going to get traded and probably get some picks. I'm going to ask you this one. The Boston Celtics, Al Horford reunion in the summer. He's only have 1 year left in his contract.
I'm thinking in my ideal world, I'd love to have Al Horford back on the team, even for like a year or something. I think Al Horford should look to maybe try to get a buyout with the Thunder. Maybe if he like spares a couple $1 million off of his contract, goes into free agency, and then maybe the Celtics or another team pick him up for a smaller deal.
Yeah, Al was definitely a great player on our own Boston Celtics, and he's not going to play another minute at Oklahoma City. They said they're going to wait to trade him in the summer. But it's going to be wait and see. We'll be back with more of the trade deadline after this quick ad.
The young men and women who become United States Marines come from our hometowns to become a part of something greater than themselves. This commitment represents the highest level of steadfast allegiance to the betterment of our communities, our country, and our Marine Corps. The journey will be one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding. The few, the proud.
And welcome back to the show. We're going to go right back into the trade deadline. So we have Nikola Vucevic, Chicago Bull. Evan Fournier, Boston Celtic. Aaron Gordon, Denver Nugget. Oladipo is now in the Heat. What do you think? What move is the biggest?
I think the biggest move of the trade deadline, like I mentioned before, I think was probably Drummond to the Lakers. I think it solidifies that the Lakers want to go back to the finals. They have the two best players in the NBA, and I think with their crew of role and sporting players with them, they can probably do it. But I also love Vucevic to the Bulls. That Bulls team for the past few years has acquired some decent talent. They have Zach LaVine, who's I believe a first-time All-Star.
Yeah,
was
first
this season.
time. He was All-Star. He was on the same team as Vucevic in the All-Star game.
And Zach LaVine, Vucevic, they drafted Patrick Williams, some other role guys. You got Kobe White, Thomas Satoransky, Lauri Markkanen.
Now Daniel Tice, too.
Now Daniel Tice off the bench, Thaddeus Young. That team could surprise some people.
Yeah, definitely going to be a big surprise. I think the biggest problem there, though, is the coaching. They fired Jim Boylan, and their coaching is still god-awful. That's the biggest problem with this team. Then you get the right pieces around, because watching the games is they benched Kobe White and No, that was Wendell Carter, I'm sorry. So they benched Kobe White and Wendell Carter, who at the time was playing pretty solid, which I didn't get why they benched them. And now they benched Kobe White, who is having a very good year. He's god-awful on defense. He's very bad on defense. But now this team overall, Chicago, is going to be god-awful on defense. Vucevic's one of the worst defending centers in the league. Offensive grade. So I think if they want a chance in the playoffs, they're going to have shootouts with everyone. Zach LaVine, Kobe White's now potentially the sixth man because Tomas Satoransky started. Vucevic can score. Tyson can give you 10 off the bench. This team's going to be a fun team to watch with shootouts. I think it's going to be phenomenal. But one underrated move, I think, is kind of the Miami Heat side. They got Victor Oladipo. Oladipo was not the greatest in Houston. His stats looked good, but if you watch the games, he wasn't a great team player. But at the end of the James Harden trade, it's terrible. It was Kelly Olynyk as the star player they got with picks. What do you think of the ending of the Houston Rockets and Brooklyn Nets trade?
Oh, yeah. So the Houston Rockets basically got a bag of chips back for James Harden. I mean, at the end of that signing, getting Victor Oladipo to the Miami Heat, the Rockets got Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk. Avery Bradley wasn't getting much playing time with the Heat, and Kelly Olynyk, good offensive player, can space the floor, but not the best on defense, and he wasn't playing great in Miami alongside Bam Adebayo. But we'll see what happens with this rebuilding Rockets team.
Yeah, going to be interesting, but they could have got a play. They could have got Ben Simmons from the Sixers.
Now that Victor Oladipo is on a contender in Miami could also be a fun team to watch. Jimmy Butler, got Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. That team with some shooting and some defense.
It's going to be interesting. The big disappointment for the Miami Heat team has been surprisingly the young gun Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero is not that great this year. One of the worst shooters, actually. I think he's going to have to step up second half if they want to make any moves. Is Jimmy can stay healthy? He's phenomenal. We've seen that. I think it's truly might come down to Tyler Hero. If the team, of course, the team stay healthy, as you saw last year in the playoff run, once Bam and Dragic went down, the whole team fell apart. I think Tyler Hero is the biggest story on this team. What do you think is the biggest story in this team? And like the make it or take it for this team.
I think I haven't seen a crazy amount of the Miami Heat, but I think that it's going to have to be make it or break it. I'm going to look to the guys who, in my opinion, impacted the team the most in the Heat finals run series back in the bubble. Those guys were Goran Dragic, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. I think whenever Goran Dragic was in the game, I think he played very well in that series. He understood some cuts. He had some good shooting. Jimmy Butler obviously stood up as the leader of that team. Bam Adebayo on the roll. I think those guys are all going to have to be big influences in getting a lot of playing time if the Heat want to go on another playoff run such as they did last season.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I got a little breaking news, sort of. So right now, the Celtics are down 47-44, 5 minutes left in the second. Guess who the second leading scorer is right now?
Who is the second leading scorer?
Luke Cornett with 10 points in 9 minutes of play. Do you think Luke Cornett is the guy to stick? Because he's a solid pick and roll defender. He didn't have much chance in Chicago. And this is his second good game if he stays on this route. Do you think Cornett's bigger than Mo Wagner?
Again, too soon to say. I think this is Mo Wagner's third game with the Celtics, Luke Cornett's second game with the Celtics. Again, we're going to have to see. These might just be flukes, but like Luke Cornett has been a proven shooter. He was a great shooter in college. Whenever he played in Chicago, he's a great shooter. He knows how to defend against pick and roll. I think both of these guys, should the Celtics choose to keep both, could both be essential for this Celtics run.
Yeah, Luke Cornett, out of nowhere, he's already become a fan favorite, and Luke Cornett can keep scoring like this. It could be huge. And I want to say it was Brad Stevens or Danny Ainge. One of them said they always had an eye on Luke Cornett.
Brad Stevens, I believe, said that.
Yeah, they always liked Cornett, and that might be a big reason why they made that trade with Chicago, get rid of Daniel Tice. They saw something in Luke Cornett that nobody else saw, but Luke Cornett could keep this up because Time Lord Robert Williams is the most amazing defender in the pick and roll, but you got Luke Cornett now. All of a sudden, this team is looking nice, but one big man I want to talk about, not on the Boston Celtics, is Bobo. He needs to get traded. He's in a great situation. His team's a winning situation, but the situation he's in is not amazing. He had some moments yesterday where he looks like an absolute, aka demigod. Nobody can guard him. His wingspan's super long. He is amazing. Bobo needs to get freed out of Denver. Do you think Bobo could become a very solid player?
Bobo could become a very solid player, potentially a star if he gets traded to another team. I think the Denver Nuggets are obviously a great team. They're going to go on a great playoff run this season. And right now, in their regular season games, Bobo isn't getting a crazy amount of minutes, which is unfortunate because he's a young star with a lot of potential.
Yeah, Bobo, interesting guy. You got to love him. His father is Manu Bo. Sadly passed away a while back. Bobo, I really wanted him to get traded to Orlando, part of the Aaron Gordon trade once they saw the rumors with Gordon most likely going there. I want him to get traded, become a star, because he's a fun player to watch. If you watch him play, his wingspan, I want to say 7'8", and he is 7'2", and he can bring the ball up good, and he can shoot the three ball. His release is very slow. Not a lot of people can contest it.
Last night he played 4 minutes, and he had 8 points, 3 for 3 shooting, and 2 for 2 from beyond the 3-point line.
When he gets the moments, he does good. Defending-wise, he's not that great, but he can improve on that. But what team do you think is in the worst situation right now?
The team that I think is in the worst situation, there's a lot of NBA teams that I think just aren't in great spots, but I think the Houston Rockets are probably in one of the worst situations right now. I feel like they're not exactly finding themselves as a team. They got John Wall for Russell Westbrook, and he's been solid. But besides that, like we mentioned before, they didn't really get much at all for Harden, and they're just gonna have to work with the guys they have.
Yeah, no, not that many minutes. They got a great contract with Christian Wood, which I still don't get why Christian Wood accepted that contract because he looked taller than in the last season. But that was really the only promising guy they have on the team. Kevin Porter Jr. too, I forgot about him, but KPJ has had some games where he looked solid, but his problem's never been on the court. It's always off the court. So if he can stay on the court, all of a sudden, maybe KPJ becomes an amazing player on this team. But I'm having a new segment. I have not told you about this segment, but this segment will be brand new that I hope to start every week. But Jacob, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
So you need to guess. I have 6 names right here. You need to guess if this player is a New York Mets player or an actor from the first Joe Dirt movie.
Okay.
And the first name we're starting out with is Trevor May. Joe Dirt or Mets player?
I'm going to go Mets player.
You're correct. He's the pitcher on the New York Mets. Another guy, J.D. Davis.
I'm going to go film.
He's Mets third base / outfielder who has actually been very solid for this team. And now we're going to go on to Dennis Miller.
Mets.
Nope, Joe Dirt. His name in the movie, Xander Kelly. Dennis Miller was, if you see his face, you will know him. But let's move on to the next name. We got Brandon Nymno.
Mets.
Correct. Mets left fielder. This one is the tricky one right here. Eric Sullivan.
Film.
He was Joe Dirt, and he played Joe Dirt as a kid in the film. Have you ever watched the movie Joe Dirt?
I have not.
Joe Dirt, it's a legendary movie, and in the scene, the little Joe Dirt got stuck in the Grand Canyon. His parents forgot him, and it's a legendary scene. But the very last name that we had is Fred Ward.
Fred Ward. I'm gonna go Mets.
He is actually in the movie Joe Dirt, and he is the father of Joe Dirt, who ditched him. But that is all we're going to have for the show. Do you want to add anything, Jacob?
I think I'm all set.
That's all we're going to have. Thank you for listening, because we're going to be back next week with Richard DeVizio. Keep on listening for more, because this is just the beginning of an amazing show.